We're gonna do all the books. All the books. Why is this tucked so far back on a shelf? I mean, talk about a book that I need to be reading. Someday. Someday. It'll happen. This is like procrastinating at the speed of life is what this is, so. It actually feels appropriate. So we talked about Frank Lloyd Wright, and then here's a picture I took of the Guggenheim. I'm looking up. Had to have it because I was like, I'm gonna be into fantasy. I read Vicious, I'm gonna be into fantasy. And sidebar, I've read the one and I read another John Mars. I shouldn't have even started to do this. Never mind. Hi everybody, it's Audrey and welcome back to Chapter on Converse. Today I thought we would finally wrap up the bookshelf tour and do bookshelf number 10 behind me here and go through what's on that shelf. So a little bit deceptive. There is a printer down here. There is a basket of books behind here. And I'm not wholly sure what's back here, or honestly, I don't even know what's over there. So I thought we would do like we did last time and just kind of like power through them. And I'll tell you if I read it, I'll tell you if I didn't. I will give some sort of off the top of my head thoughts, but not dwell too long on all the books and just dive into it. So since it is at a convenient level, I figure I'll just shimmy over a little bit, pull the books off, and we will do the thing. So for anyone who has not seen the previous 9 videos, I will link some stuff down below, but long story short, I did not want to do a bookshelf tour because it just felt entirely too tedious and not too exciting to me. So I have been going shelf by shelf, pulling every book off, talking to you guys about it. This is not everything I own. This is sort of like the bulk of what you guys see on the regular. And there is honestly a part of me, because I started doing this a while ago with the intention of finding some books to unhaul, hopefully finding some new favorites or books to push closer to the top of my list. And then the more I got into it, the more I was like, I really want to reorganize this bookshelf. But I haven't been able to do it until I finished because I was not going to be able to remember what I told you guys about. And you can't reorganize a bookshelf without doing the entire shelf. So that's a big motivation why I'm pushing to do this. Here we go. Let me see what I can find and let's just talk about the books. So I know normally I'll play like some kind of fun music and show you guys me pulling all books off the shelf, but we're not going to do that today. Because again, it's at my height. So let's start. Gonna pull some of these off. And why am I doing this? Let's just get into it. Okay, so the first book I have is In the Dark, Lorith Ann White. This was an arc that I got back in the day at another Thriller Fest. A lot of Thriller Fest arcs. And this is an isolated mystery. This is one that I know I've talked to you guys about before. It says romantic suspense, but it's like, I think also like, not even in the, this is why I'm not supposed to talk about the books. It's supposed to be a getaway, but it's a trap. Everybody's got a secret. And they're all gonna come out. Okay, next up is Friend Request by Laura Marshall. I actually started to read this earlier this year and just couldn't get in the mood for it. I made it 14 pages in. It's not the book, it was me. So this is Maria Weston Wants to Be Friends with Me, but Maria Weston has been dead for more than 25 years. So she gets like a Facebook friend request from like this dead girl from 25 years ago. So I think this is probably Dark and Messed Up Female Friendships, Dark and Messed Up Friendships. I'm in for it. TJ Klune's The House in the Cerulean Sea. I feel like everybody was talking about this book. I haven't read it yet. I'm excited for it. I know there's some hubbub around him and some of the things he said, but I also have heard so many people say wonderful things about this book, and I already owned it at the time, so I am gonna read it. I am very interested in it. I will say, does anybody else hate when they do this with the paperback, where they do this paper, like the overlappy thing? I can't stand that. Ugh. Stephen King's Misery. I haven't read it yet, but I'm going to. I talked about this last winter as like a spooky, wintry vibe book, and then I didn't get to it. So I did read Pet Sematary, you guys know, and then I'm gonna read this next of his books. I was kind of saving it again for the wintry season. We'll see if I last that long. This might make it into spooky season, October instead. Another book I haven't read, All Eyes on Her by Ellie Flynn. She wrote The Girls Are Also Nice Here, so this is Laurie Elizabeth Flynn. This is a YA book of hers that I bought before I bought the other one. And This is a girl and a boy went into the woods. The girl carried a picnic basket. The boy wore bright yellow running shoes. The girl found her way out, but the boy never did. So I don't know if this is ghosty or if it's just thrillery. I remember hearing great things about it, so I had to have it. That should be like my other tagline, like dark and messed up people doing dark and messed up things. Had to have it, haven't read it. Best of Friends by Lucinda Berry. I got this for Christmas as a gift. Haven't read it. I haven't read any of these. This is why I need to do this. Good Girl, Bad Girl by Michael Robotham. So this is, he's written a series and I feel like this might be part of a series. And this is investigation also. I don't know. Yeah, so his next book is When She Was Good. So I have a feeling this may be, oh, maybe this would be good for series September. It's not over yet. Haven't read it yet. And then I have Cass Freer's Sweet Little Lies. This is also a series, right? Yes, I talked about this in series September. Oh my gosh, guys, this is embarrassing. So this is the detective, Kat Kinsella. She is on the police force in London? Yes, in London, and then there was something that happened in Ireland years ago. I've heard great things about this one as well. Haven't read it yet, but I will. Sarah Alderson's The Weekend Away. She wrote Friends Like These, which I loved, which talk about dark and messed up female friendships. This was on my summer, great books for summer that I should read, and I didn't read it, but I will. The Dead Season by Tessa Weger. This is the second book in the Shana Merchant series. So the first book was Death in the Family, which I really enjoyed. So I need to read, I was gonna say season 2, book number 2, and I'm going to. I really enjoyed the first book and I'm excited to read that one. Another book that I talked about with, it would be good for back to work. So I did that 9 to 5 because I spent like a month where I was still commuting and going into the office to do some setups when we reopened. And I didn't read this one, but this is Colleague, Coworker, Killer, that 9 to 5 life. Work would be great if it wasn't for the people. This book, this was a splurge and I haven't read it yet, but I just like had to have it, which I know is kind of ridiculous, but at the same time, it's me, so maybe not. This is Jennifer Hillier's Wonderland. How creepy is this cover? I did pay a little bit extra for this because I wanted to have it. And this is Welcome to Wonderland. It is, I have not read her backlist and I need to read her backlist. I picked up Creep also pretty recently and I just thought this was so beautiful and I'm excited to read it. And this is another one. I don't have a clown thing, but after this, maybe I will. And I just had to have it. So another good one for spooky season, I think. Okay, we've got a lot of binge purchase. I can see it. I can see it happening here. Thrillers and mysteries and all sorts of other things. This is none of the above. This is American Royals by Catherine McGee. After I read Red, White, and Royal Blue, I was like, I must have all the things. And then I was watching The Crown and I love Harry and Meghan and I love Will and Kate and had to have it, haven't read it. So this is the House of Washington in the US. So if there had never been a president, but there had always been a king, and these are descendants of George Washington. And Princess Beatrice is becoming closer to being the first queen. And I think it's like Gossip Girl. I was gonna say American Royals, that's the name of the book. Royalty, DC, politics, hijinks stuff, which is all good for me, good for me. Okay, the next two books are part of a series by Sarah Bladell, so The Lost Woman and The Midnight Witness. I haven't read either. I picked up The Forgotten Girls, which is referenced here first, not realizing it was part of a series. And then I was like, oh, I must go back and like get other books in the series, and then never read any of them. But I will, because this is like detective-y. I'm making that up. I think it'll be great though. And then Unsub by Meg Gardner. Why am I not reading this for series September? I've had this for years and I haven't read it yet. So I have the sequel, or I have the second book. I think it's back here too. Meg Gardner definitely writes dark and messed up. And I think this is loosely based on the Zodiac Killer, is like the inspiration for this. I was just listening to True Crime Obsessed, which is one of my favorite podcasts, and there was another Zodiac Killer special that was on some channel. They do every TV thing, and like Donnie Wahlberg like low-key hosted part of it, but I was just listening to that again, and they're talking about Zodiac. I need to read that book. I also have never watched the movie Zodiac. I know, but I've listened to probably a dozen true crime podcasts about the Zodiac Killer, so do with that information what you will. Next up is Pretty Little Wife by Darby Kane, and this is There's More Than One Way to End a Marriage. Shouldn't a Husband Stay Dead? This was one of my most anticipated books of 2021. Haven't read it yet. Jane Doe. Why is this still here? I've talked about unhauling this book multiple times. I even like pulled the tabs out of the front. I think I just, honestly, I have not unhauled it. Yeah, I said I wanted it to be darker. Oh my God. Because with COVID and everything else, and like my library wasn't accepting books, I have a couple free little libraries by me, and they're always jam-packed. And people put like magazines and junky stuff in it, which really aggravates me. But I'm going to, I talked about this in the last video, I'm gonna do a separate unhaul video of what I'm unhauling based on what we're doing here. That will be in it, and then I'm actually going to unhaul the book. So the next one I have is The Good Samaritan by John Mars. And I bought this, I wanna say, my goodness. I bought this from Murder by the Book, and I'm trying to think, I definitely bought this at the same time. I haven't read either of them. I don't remember what the big book that was coming out at the time. Might have been Alex Finley. Either way, I got this from Murder by the Book. So this is a friendly voice on the phone, but can you trust her? So it's the end of the line is the hotline that people call. And I think the Good Samaritan kind of encourages people to end their lives, maybe. It sounds kind of messed up. So the next one is The Girls I've Been Before by Tess Sharp, another had to have it. So this is 3 teens, 2 bank robbers, 1 way out. I've heard some really good things about this, but again, I haven't heard enough people talking about it. So I need to read it so I can talk about it. And again, very excited for this book. Also love the cover. Another book I've had forever and haven't read yet is Pretty Things by Janelle Brown. And this is another kind of, I think, like psychological, I don't know if thriller is going to be the right word for this one, maybe psychological suspense. It says it's page turny, but 2 wildly different women, one a grifter, the other an heiress, brought together by the scam of a lifetime. Beautiful cover. Oh my goodness, you guys, how many times have I showed you guys? Haven't read it. Had to have it because I was like, I'm gonna be into fantasy. I read Vicious, I'm gonna be into fantasy. And they're beautiful. Haven't read them yet. I will. I feel like I've overhyped them to a degree. They're rather large in size, over 500 pages, but I'm going to read them. They are absolutely beautiful. It's gonna happen. I'm also gonna read Ninth House someday. There's so many things I'm going to do someday. Mark my words. Okay, here's the next Meg Gardner in the Unsub series. So that's part of a sequel. And then I have The Eighth Detective from Alex Pavesi? I'm not sure how you say that. I want to say this was one of Mara from Books Like Woe's favorites of last year. I definitely got this because of her. And I feel like it was like on one of her top lists of 2020. And I was just really excited about it. Yeah, it came out in 2020. And I just am really curious. Alex North, who wrote The Whisper Man, which I haven't read yet, check with me on spooky season, but who wrote The Shadow Friend, he wrote, "It's rare for me to read a book in a single day, but I couldn't put The Eighth Detective down. Compelling, clever, beautifully constructed. It deserves to be huge." So we'll see. It's not that physically big of a book, but let me know if anybody's read this. Another one I'm not really hearing people talk too much about. Okay, we're just gonna adjust a little bit here. So we see pictures in the background. Okay, now we're definitely gonna get into stuff that I really don't know much about. I know a lot about this. So this is Becoming by Michelle Obama. Read this, loved it. I listened to the audiobook of this as well. Beautiful. She narrates it. This is a book that I think I need to just ditch before the fall. I've had this for a while. I've talked about it multiple times, by Noah Hawley. I never read it. I'm never compelled to read it, even though it's supposed to be great. So a plane goes down and the only survivors are a painter and a 4-year-old boy, and it's like all these privileged people on the plane. I don't know. Rachel Hall, and Now She's Gone. This was her book that came out this year. I enjoyed a lot of it. There was parts of one of the storylines. You have like multiple characters that I didn't wholly love. I had a little bit of a hard time getting into her writing, but there were parts that I also genuinely enjoyed about this book. So it's detective, not even detective. She's like a rookie investigator, like Private Eye, not police. And then I have Catherine Barber's Follow Me. So she wrote, it's called Truth Be Told Now. It was originally called Are You Sleeping? The TV show that's on Apple TV is next to nothing like the book, but there's like a podcast element in it. There's like a mystery in the past, a mystery in the present. You've got some twin sisters. I really enjoyed it. This is a standalone from that, but I really enjoyed Catherine Barber's writing. So it says, everyone wants new followers until they follow you home. Sounds good. The next books, these are part of a series. So this is the Griffin and Sabine series. I don't know if anybody read any of these. Sabine's Notebook, it's like all the rage, and The Golden Mean. And if you haven't, these are so beautifully illustrated, and it's like these letters between these two people, Griffin and Sabine, and it's postcards, but it's like interactive is not the right word, but like there's a little envelope and then you can open it and like you can pull out the letter that they write to each other. And I haven't read these in years, but they're so beautiful and I just love them so much. I think there's a 4th book that came out in the series. I should go back and look. I don't know. This is just sort of like sentimental fond memories. I'm trying to think, well, let me see when these came out. This came out in 1991, so that should give you some context, but beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And then tucked back here, we have Get Your Shit Together, How to Stop Worrying About What You Should Do So You Can Finish What You Need to Do and Start Doing What You Want to Do, by Sarah Knight. Why is this tucked so far back on a shelf? I mean, talk about a book that I need to be reading. This is why we do this, putting that up forward. Okay, have not read Carol Goodman, The Widow's House. This looks kind of creepy. I have no idea if it is or not. When they moved from Williamsburg to the Hudson Valley, I don't know, whatever they're doing. Get a house, borrow a house. Gothic premise, moody. Sounds good. The Other Mother by Carol Goodman. Clearly I went on a binge of an author I've never read before. Haven't read this one either. So this is 2 new mothers, 2 babies named Chloe, one giant web of lies and deception. Sounds like a plan. Then we have Maureen Lindsay's The Beloveds. Has anybody read this? I have not. Oh, to be a beloved, so I don't know what this one's about either. Maybe a family drama, something or another. Beautiful cover though. I know, you're probably all like, get rid of it, not getting rid of it. So The Breakdown by B.A. Paris. I haven't read this. I haven't read B.A. Paris. I hear great things about her and I want to read her. So I have Behind Closed Doors, which I feel like everybody says is the good one. And then this, I think this woman is like in a car and she sees something happen on the side of the road. I don't know if I can do car and storm right now. I'm still dealing with my car, which I may have already told you guys this. I got confirmation it's being totaled out, so I still like, I can't, I'm not gonna be doing car stuff right now. So next up is To the Lions by Holly Waite. This is another arc that I got at Thriller Fest. This is from 2019. This is about a journalist and there's just, I don't know, some stuff. Keeping it. Sherry LaPena's An Unwanted Guest. This is isolated thriller. I actually read this book. So this is people who go away for a weekend, like all sorts of different people, to a place up in the Catskills. They wind up getting snowed in, murder happens, and you know, the killer's in the house because they're all trapped in the house together. Next up, this is another book that I am going to unhaul, which I think I've talked to you guys about before. So this is called Hazel House by Obi Elegweki. I could not get into this book for the life of me. This was so many things that I thought I wanted out of a book. We have London, Lagos, New York. We have a talented fashion designer, her beloved husband. They're like uber rich, and then there's like some messed up thing that happens and like a body found in a hotel room. But the timelines were super confusing. I talked about this the last time I talked to you guys about this. I want to say it was like 60 pages in, and there's like a reference to it being like New Year's Eve 1989 or something, and I'm like, oh, did we jump back in time? But meanwhile, like the whole book is set or like opens in the 80s, but nothing about what's described or anything would make you think that it wasn't present day. I had a hard time with the writing. I DNF'd this book thinking I would go back to it, but I'm DNFing it for good. I just couldn't get into it. I was bummed because I really wanted to love it and I didn't. And then I have Lauren Weisberger's Chasing Harry Winston. I love Devil Wears Prada, and I really enjoyed Everyone Worth Knowing. So this is really old, like yellowy pages. Old, you guys, but I don't know if I'll ever read this one again, but I really enjoyed it when I did. This was definitely of a time. I don't know if it will stand up over time, but I dog-eared so many pages in it that I loved, so we'll see. Maybe I'll go back and kind of revisit some of these books from back in the day, but loved it. It's from Borders. That's how old this is. So I'm gonna just turn around and maybe be a little bit less awkward than I was trying to reach behind me. So next up, Patricia Cornwell's The Scarpetta Factor, 9,000 pages, book 9,000 in the series. I'm rereading it. I'm not getting rid of it. I'm gonna reread it. So we have that one. We have Marion Keyes, Making It Up as I Go Along. So this is nonfiction, like little vignettes that she wrote. You guys know I love her. I need to read her again and again. I didn't talk about this yet. I was gonna post this on Instagram, so you may have already seen it by now, but if not, there's gonna be a sequel to Rachel's Holiday coming out like in February 2022. So now I have full motivation, because it's up there, to reread Rachel's Holiday. I loved that book. It's part of the Walsh sister group, and I can't believe she's revisiting these characters. I can't wait, you guys. I'm so excited. I'm so excited. So Agatha Christie's Partners in Crime. This is part of the Tommy and Tuppence series. I talked about how I was going to read one of these for Series September. I didn't, but I will. My dad gave me this. And then He Said, She Said by Erin Kelly. I feel like I've heard super mixed things on this one. Summer of 1999. There's a festival in Cornwall. Something bad happens, and then it's like 15 years later. Let me know if anybody's read this one. I'm like intrigued, but not enough to pick it up lately. I talked about this one recently. So this is The Red Queen. So this is by Christina Henry. She wrote Alice, and she does like spins on kind of classic, I feel like I said fairy tales last time I talked about it, but it's more like classic stories like Alice in Wonderland. So you have The Red Queen. She did Hook from Peter Pan, and I think this is sort of like a dark, messed up point of view. It's fantasy. I don't even know. Back down the rabbit hole we go. The Wife by Alafara Burke. So this is the UK cover of this book. I have the US one, and I had some sort of psychotic break where I thought this was like a different book than what it actually is. I know. You can judge me if you want. Let me see, this is part of a series. Okay, let's go to this one. So this is Nikki French's The Lying Room. This is also an arc I got from Thriller Fest. I haven't read any Nikki French yet. I have the Frida Klein first book on Monday. Oh my gosh, I almost knocked that whole thing over. So I'm gonna keep this and read it. All the Thriller Fest stuff is just, I can't not. Next up, so Kira Davis. This is an entire series she did. I don't know which one is first. It's the Sophie Catt series. I loved these books. So I discovered these when the books were already out. And this is in San Francisco, and she is a thriller writer. This is kind of chick lit thriller. It gets a little dark and twisted with some of it, and I loved it. So this is Passion, Betrayal, and Killer Highlights, Sex, Murder, and a Double Latte. I feel like that's the first one. This was the last one I bought. So Vows, Vendettas, and a Little Black Dress. I feel like she wound up, this is Red Dress Inc., and then she wound up changing publishers. And then I feel like she self-published maybe one of them also. I know I have more of them in here. Hold please. We have Obsession, Deceit, and Really Dark Chocolate. And then Lust, Loathing, and Lip Gloss. House Hunting Can Be Murder. I should reread these because I loved this series. I devoured these completely. And she was just such a fun, great writer. Next up is nonfiction. It's 52 Ways to Live a Kick-Ass Life. Live the Life You Deserve. So I read this a while ago. It's hugely dog-eared. I feel like I could certainly give this one a reread. This came out in 2013. So yeah, it's been a minute since I read this, but I could definitely use this kind of a kick. And then Helen Field's Perfect Remains. I saw her at a Thriller Fest. She's written a bunch of books now. This is the first in a series. This was dark. This was really dark, you guys. The Perfect Death Leaves Perfect Remains. This was like bodies being burned on page 1. It was a lot. She's a good writer. She's a very good writer, but it was messed up. Decluttering at the Speed of Life by Dana K. White. I did a whole like books I read to help me declutter video a while ago. I kind of feel like I can probably let this one go. Like if I really need to be reading a book again, this is like procrastinating at the speed of life is what this is. So somebody else can appreciate that. I very much enjoyed it and got some good nuggets, but I feel like I don't need to keep it. DV by Diana Vreeland. So I don't know when I got this book. This is an autobiography. Fashion, I haven't read it, which is also embarrassing. This came out in 1997. I did not get it then, but she was a fashion editor at Harper's. She was editor-in-chief of Vogue at one point, and there you have it. And then Falling for Me by Anna David. A friend of mine, my older roommate from college, gave me this when I was at her house a few years ago. So this is how I hung curtains, learned to cook, traveled to Seville, and fell in love. So I feel like this is Eat, Pray, Love for people who don't want to read Eat, Pray, Love, maybe. I think it's like that kind of a thing. So yeah, we'll see. And then Agatha Christie's Mysterious Affair at Styles. This is the first book. This is the first Poirot. I read this a few years ago, more than a few years ago. And I'm gonna keep it because she's the queen and that's the first book. Just a couple more randoms in here. So Mindy Kaling Is Everyone Hanging Out Without Me and Other Concerns. This was her first book. I feel like she wrote a few. How cute is she, you guys? There was a lot of really funny stuff in here. She is so good. She's so, so good. And I totally I wrote in this book, I underlined different things. And she just is such a funny lady. I think she's just amazing. Huge fan. Holding on to that one. Then I have a bookend that's doing nothing. And then a couple other things. So I have The Giving Tree by Shel Silverstein, kind of like a classic book that I feel like everybody has. And then, so this is my dad was like cleaning out his stuff and gave it to me. So my dad's an architect. I feel like I've said that before on here. So these are different books on architecture. So American architecture. I know this is like sentimental stuff. Mies van der Rohe, the Barcelona chair. Aww. So when I went to Barcelona, I actually got to go to his, it's not studio. I went to the Barcelona Pavilion. I made my friends, I had no idea how far away it was from everything. We went so far in a taxi, saw it. There was not too much to see, and then went back. But it was great to see it. It was pretty cool. And then he did the Seagram building in New York, so great. And then Frank Lloyd Wright, who was like my favorite. I did multiple term papers on this man. The Guggenheim and Usonia and Fairburn, Pennsylvania, Falling Water. And he's got that beautiful room in the Metropolitan with his furniture and so many other things. And I just love all this kind of stuff. I love me some architecture. And then there's little pamphlets and stuff. Oh, speaking of, Speaking of Frank Lloyd Wright, so, I mean, I'm not hiding anything, just architecture stuff. So then we have another Frank Lloyd Wright, and then Frank Lloyd Wright, the Metropolitan. So that's the room that's still there, and I used to visit it every time I went. When I lived in the city, I used to be a member, and just great. Just great, great, great. And then over here, I feel like this is more, yep, it's like more Frank Lloyd Wright stuff. This is all architecture stuff that was my dad's that he gave to me. Taliesin West, I went out there. The architecture tour that just doesn't end. If I can find it, I'll pop it up. I've got a picture of me standing in front of the sign. Maybe you guys will get a kick out of that in college. And I'm wearing my Converse sneakers for people who think this is not chapter in Converse and they think it's chapter in Converse. I'll find that picture. And then this was just like my original old writing notebooks where I used to write quotes from books and stuff in it. Things would fall out of it. And I used to jot down my books in the back. I feel like you can't see it, it's whited out. So that's what that is. And that's the whole shelf. Okay guys, so that's gonna do it for the 10th shelf. My battery is literally flashing that it's gonna die. So thank you for getting this far in the series. Now I can officially start to redo my shelves. And thank you guys for hanging out today and watching the chaos unfold as always. But I will see you guys really soon in another video. So take care everybody, bye.